My name is Naisha Khan, and I am a second-generation Bangladeshi settler on stolen and unceded Kwantlen, Katzie, and Semiahmoo land. I've been a climate justice organizer for nearly 2 years with the organization Sustainabiliteens and Banking on a Better Future. And in this episode, I'm going to explore through my personal experiences why it is essential to view the movement through an intersectional lens. When we imagine climate activists, we often imagine someone who is white, and this is intentional. The climate movement, specifically starting with the conservation movement, is deeply rooted in white supremacy. From the outset, it focused on saving the environment from the effects of climate change, but in doing so, it has failed to protect the racialized communities affected by the same environmental degradation. It has erased these struggles and the inequity that they experience as their communities have been ravaged by climate change. This history of exclusion impacts BIPOC in the climate movement. Our work continues to be erased, white supremacy continues to manifest, and it continues to harm BIPOC. I have personally experienced micro and macro aggressions, tokenism, and just a general lack of cultural understanding that has made me want to leave this movement at times. I feel like a resource or a prop often asked to speak up about any race-related issue, whether it be BLM or Indigenous sovereignty, because I'm just automatically categorized as this non-white organizer, regardless of the fact that the struggles of different communities and individuals are unique. Despite this reality, there are still times when I have felt safe, heard, and respected in this movement. And the key to these spaces was an understanding of intersectionality. But what is intersectionality? The concept of intersectionality was coined by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw in her paper, Demarginalizing the Intersection of Race and Sex. Intersectionality recognizes that we live in a society characterized by multiple systems of oppression, including sexism, colonialism, and racism. And these systems are all intertwined. These systems of oppression do not work exclusively to oppress one specific group at a time, but instead overlap and work together to compound oppression for intersecting groups. Within the climate movement, we need to be aware of and take action to deconstruct these systems of oppression. Otherwise, we are replicating the same systems of colonialism and capitalism that caused this crisis in the first place. The key to successful inclusive movements that center marginalized voices is intersectionality. Here are some of my asks to ensure intersectionality is upheld. Center and uplift BIPOC voices. No matter how educated you are, you'll never have the lived experience of someone else. You'll never truly understand their emotions or the depth of their oppression. So instead of speaking for others, work to uplift marginalized voices so that they can speak for themselves. This is especially important because BIPOC communities are at the center of the climate crisis and have extensive knowledge and lived experience to share. Unlearn white supremacy, but not at the cost of my emotional labor. There are so many existing resources out there, Black, Indigenous, and POC written content that you can find online. Do not unnecessarily labor the BIPOC folk in your life because this work is hard for us. It is tiring, and I'm more than just a resource. I'm a person who needs rest and care. Incorporating hope. Indigenous and other communities of color have been practicing sustainability for years, whilst building mutual aid and other practices of community care. We have the solution, we just need to center different voices to make it a reality. And lastly, celebrate BIPOC joy. Too often, racialized folk are reduced to sob stories and to our traumas when, in fact, we're full-fledged people capable of experiencing joy and love. For me, I am slowly starting to center joy in my organizing. Systems of oppression are rooted in hate. Hate for the other, hate for ourselves. But by centering joy, especially as a marginalized person, I am committing an act of anti-oppression. When fighting the climate crisis, it is absolutely necessary to use an intersectional and anti-oppressive lens. This both works to center marginalized and racialized voices, but it also works to dismantle centuries of oppression that caused this emergency in the first place. I know it may seem like a lot to care about all of these different issues when one just wants to fight for climate action, but this crisis did not just occur, and its impacts will not occur equally. The systems of oppression that caused this in the first place will also shape its effects, and in order to truly combat it, we must unite movements, because our fight is not separate. Our liberation is bound together.